While we're waiting for questions, I just want to answer you asked me why Manchester.
Oh, yeah.
So I just want to tell you that. Well, Manchester has my heart, but Manchester has had one of the highest numbers of asylum seekers in the country, and it's been one of the key cities to host them upon arrival to the UK. It's been a safe, welcoming city of sanctuary for people fleeing war and persecution. And there's a vibrant Syrian community, including doctors in Greater Manchester. So it was a natural choice for Sammy's journey to end there. You've got Reach Northwest, which carries out training and offers pastoral support for refugee healthcare professionals. So, you know, for like Sammy's dad. And it also has its own airport, which has a short-term detention centre facility. So that's why I based it there. But ultimately, Sammy settles there because it's one of the best cities to live in.
Yeah, we didn't get a chance to get to that question, so thank you for answering that. I know it was really nice to read the Manchester bits of the book as well. Yeah, and while we're waiting, I suppose we could pick up on a little bit of that of the moments, say, in the detention centre, which are some of the sort of darker moments of the book, where we're really, you know, we're covering grief and loss and kind of difficult emotions, and you balance that out, don't you, with more hopeful moments of reunion and moments of solidarity. So how important was it to you that you kind of found that balance, and how did you find that balance? Because I bet you had quite a lot of distressing stories in your research, as well as, you know, kind of positive ones as well.
Yeah, it was really important. I wanted to show readers, particularly children, that terrible things happen in life to ordinary people, but we are stronger than we realise. And with the help of friends and family, we can get through those difficulties. And Sammy has hope in bucket loads, even though he doesn't realise it. You know, his life is turned upside down. He loses everything and he ends up in places he'd never expected. But he hopes that Sarah will get better and things will improve once he gets to England. He hopes that his friend Joseph is okay back in Syria. He hopes to help his new refugee friend Adam. And then when he finally gets to England and it isn't what he expected it to be, he looks forward to going back to Syria and hopes to rebuild it one day. And he shows readers that no matter how bad things get, you can envision a better future, one that is better than the situation you find yourself in. Yeah. And I think that the story shows how little acts of kindness can make a difference to someone's life. So the small gestures of respect from Miss Patel, the immigration officer, or David, the Jewish detention centre guard, or Sammy's school friend Ali, or Uncle Mohammed, even what Sammy and his family do for Adam, they're all actions which give us hope that there are good people and we can try to be like them too. So it was hard. The lorry scene and the boat scenes were the most difficult to write because I knew that real people had experienced this. But what made me passionate to tell this story was knowing that there were people out there that had suffered this loss that were being stereotyped against. And, you know, hearing their stories made me want to amplify their voices.
Yeah, thank you. We've had a question actually in the chat, and it's something I asked you earlier before we started the session, and it's C. Reed says, I read the first 2 chapters to my year 7 yesterday and they loved it, and so many of them were identifying with it. I wanted to ask if you had any plans to write more novels for children or young adults that deal with similar themes. What have you got in the pipeline? And I did ask you that before we started earlier, so yeah, please tell us.
So I've written another upper middle grade novel, which, like Boy Everywhere, it takes a outside event that rocks. This time it's a female main character, but it rocks her world, and it's about her finding her identity and standing up for what is right. And this time it's school based, and it's fully set in England. But I would say it's sort of like Thug meets Moxie for middle grade readers.
Wow.
It spotlights, just like it spotlights a community, it spotlights the Muslim community, and it looks at it from a different angle that hasn't been looked at before. And it also explores the far right. It explores how the rise of the far right has impacted families. So yeah.
That's amazing. I really want to read that. That sounds great. A. Morgan says, did you hope the book will be picked up by schools and studied as opposed to just read? I suppose you don't ever write a book, do you, with it being studied in mind? But I suppose, I guess, like that is a hope, or that, you know, you want it to have that kind of impact?
It was my dream, actually. I didn't write it. Obviously, I wrote it as a story. I'd done lots of courses, you know, to make sure that you know, use the structure, etc. So I didn't have it in mind, but the dream was always, I didn't care that it would be in a commercial book. I wanted it to be in schools and libraries. That was always like my dream. And you know, for me, when I was at school, the stories that stayed with me were the ones that we studied in English with my English teacher. They're the ones that, you know, resonated with me, because when you're looking at a book with somebody who sort of helps you navigate it, you understand it better. So for me, Brave New World and what's the other one? A Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. Those two books impacted me in ways that, you know, no other book really has, and no other book did in those formative years. So yeah, I'm really delighted that it's being studied.
Would you say there were any other influences on Boy Everywhere that while you were writing, or from your own kind of reading history, that influenced the way you wrote the book or any of the characters?
Not really. I mean, there's elements of people and observations in all of the characters, but the one that is based on someone is Uncle Mohammed. So, I mean, thankfully his family are not awful like the one that I've depicted, but you know, I remember staying with them, and you know, the doorbell would ring, and he'd you know, he'd say, "Oh, right, you need to clear your bedroom because we've got so and so staying with us tonight because they need help." And he was just that kind of guy. And the kids were great, you know, they were like, yeah, okay, and they wanted to help, but yeah, he was based on somebody, you know.
That's so funny. C. Lever says, how did you approach the topic of education in the book? Are there references to how Sammy's education has been disrupted by his journey? That is actually really important in the novel, isn't it? And kind of how he kind of has a disrupted education and then has to pick that up again in Manchester. And then they say, I want to talk to our year sevens about privileged, with them all having a fulfilling education. Yeah, it's a really good point.
Yeah, so he goes from this, you know, great school, English speaking school, which, you know, is like a private school in Syria. And, you know, he's got everything he needs. And, you know, there are many times where his mum, there's a conversation in the cabin in Greece before they fly into Europe, where she tells him that if we're caught, tell them that you go to this school. And he says, you know, he thinks about, she says, you're going to have to go back to school. And he doesn't want to go back to school, actually, because he's just thinking about the mess that his life is. But his mum is like, no, you've had enough. She actually says, you know, you've missed enough. You've had enough disruption. You're going to school. And then again, that conversation picks up in Manchester, where he doesn't want to go to school. And his mum and dad are like, don't be silly. You're going. Of course you're going. And then when his dad is in the head teacher's office, when he's being introduced on his first day, you know, his dad says he's a great student. He loves the sciences. And his dad has, bless him, I shouldn't give spoilers, should I? I won't give spoilers. But, you know, his dad talks about him as this studious student, and Sammy is not seeing himself in that way. And he's so relieved to hear that his dad saw that potential in him back in Syria. And he says, oh, great, this proves that I'm not a loser. Yeah. And then when he's in class, he's asked to read, and he does read because he wants to show the others that he can speak English. And he does it in his best voice, and he's petrified, but he does it. So yeah,
it is a really important part of his experiences. And one last question before we finish up. From our Woolhouse, who says, I loved Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. And are there any must-have books that you'd like to see in school libraries?
Oh.
Tough one, that.
I can't think of any right now. For secondary schools. Oh, come on. Oh, you know, actually, recently I read Clap When You Land. This is for older students. I wouldn't say it's for year 7 and 8s, but it's again, you know, it takes you through someone's journey that you wouldn't ordinarily know about or experience. And it's about a girl living in the Dominican Republic. And you experience how they deal with grief, the culture there, and you experience themes of loss, and you know, not having your parent in your life, education, privilege. It looks at, it compares one sister that is privileged to another sister who, is privileged in her community, but that community is not, doesn't, is not equal to a life in America. So that is one that I really enjoyed that. There's also one that's lighthearted that I really enjoyed, which is middle grade, which is Pie in the Sky by Remy Lai, and that also looks at immigration, but it's a Chinese family that have moved to Australia, but it's illustrated, so it might be great for readers that are reluctant as well, but it's hilarious, it's funny, and it's basically looks at the way that the boy looks at himself as an alien. He sees himself as an alien in Australia, and that because he can't speak English, and it's about the challenge for him to come out of his shell and learn English, and also deal with grief of losing his father, which is why they've moved to Australia. So yeah, those two are great.
Oh, brilliant recommendations. I haven't read either of those, so I have to look up those, check those out. Thanks so much, Az, for your really thoughtful discussion on the book, and thank you to Sajida as well for taking us through some of the thinking behind the resource. That was really insightful. And I wanted to say thanks to the audience for attending tonight. So as Kay mentioned at the beginning, you'll all get an email from Kay via the Eventbrite link tomorrow, and that will contain a link to the resource that we've talked about today, and an invitation to sign up for the schools event in July. So Greater Manchester Schools, thanks to the funding from the Siobhan Dowd Trust and Read Manchester, can apply for class sets of the books, and there are details about how to do that will follow in the email. There's just going to be a week for you to apply for those books, so don't delay. If you're interested in getting a set of Boy Everywhere, get in touch with Kay straight away when you get the email. Do look out for that if you're a Central Manchester school. Greater Manchester school. And then also, if you're a Central Manchester school, just to make it extra complicated, you can receive Read Manchester funded author workshops. So you'll get an extra email about that if you're eligible for those. But regardless of whether you qualify for free books or for the free author event, we really hope that tonight's event will persuade you to buy the book for use in your school or for in your library, and to use the resource and to come back and talk to Az again, perhaps bringing some of your students along in July. So thank you so much to everyone tonight, and to Read Manchester and Manchester Children's Book Festival. I've just been really pleased to be able to chat about this awesome book with you. And that's it, we're done.